You wouldn't expect cruelty in a place where dinner costs more than rent. But privilege, like poison, can destroy everything it touches, even when dressed in designer clothes. For Naomi Carter, this lesson came in the form of a spilled glass of wine at the 12th table. The Sterling Room at the Grand Monarch Hotel was where the powerful dined. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the cityscape. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft light onto white tablecloths that cost more to clean than most people's weekly paychecks. The patrons were CEOs, politicians, celebrities, people accustomed to the world bending to their will. Naomi moved through this world like a ghost. 26 years old, with very dark skin, she possessed the graceful movements honed over years of ballet before she had to quit for financial reasons, and eyes that seemed to absorb everything while appearing not to notice anything. Naomi was a beautiful woman. She had been working at the Sterling Room for 2 years, saving every tip, every hour of overtime, building up savings for a future that always seemed out of reach. Tonight would be a routine night, serving the VIP section, smiling politely, fading into the background. Table 12 was hosting what the staff called the Powerful's Dinner. 3 men in expensive suits were discussing what appeared to be an important business deal. The silver-haired, sharp-eyed older gentleman had introduced himself only as Mr. Stone when making the reservation. Sitting beside him were 2 young executives, one of whom was Carter Drake. Drake was everything Naomi had learned to recognize and quietly despise. White, in his mid-30s, dressed with an armor-like confidence. He spoke loudly, dominated conversations, and possessed the distinctive arrogance of someone who had never been told no. Naomi approached the table with a water pitcher as appetizers were being served. "Gentlemen, shall I refill your glasses?" she asked. Drake didn't look up from his phone. "Give me sparkling. And get it right this time. The last girl brought still water like an idiot," he said. Drake was blatantly ignoring Naomi, and he wasn't speaking respectfully at all. Naomi's jaw tightened slightly, but her expression remained professional. "Of course, sir," she said. She couldn't afford to be rude. As Naomi reached to refill Mr. Stone's glass, Drake suddenly shifted in his chair and knocked the table. The Bordeaux wine in front of him spilled, splashing onto the white tablecloth in his arm. Naomi felt a wave of panic. "For God's sake," Drake exclaimed, pushing his chair back. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered to himself. But he said it out loud. "I'm so sorry, sir," Naomi said immediately, setting down the carafe and reaching for the service towel. "Let me help," she said. "Don't touch me." Drake's voice rose, drawing the attention of neighboring tables. "Do you know how expensive this suit is?" he asked. "Sir, I'm sorry. If you'll allow me, I'll help you," Naomi said. "You stupid black girl," Drake said. His words were sharp and venomous. "Can't you do anything right? Is this job too complicated for you?" he asked. There was a mocking tone in his question. The room fell silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused midway to mouths. Even the soft jazz music was enveloped in a shocking silence. Naomi stood motionless, towel in hand. She had encountered everyday racism before, prejudices, microaggressions, subtle belittling. But this was different. This was blatant, cruel, and intended to humiliate. "I sincerely apologize for the accident, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the burning pain in her chest. "I will call a manager to assist you," she said. "Yes, do that," Drake said sarcastically. "Call someone competent. Clearly that person isn't you," he added. Naomi turned to leave, but Drake wasn't finished. As she walked away, Drake grabbed her wrist, not gently, but firmly enough to stop her. "When grown men are talking business," he said, his breath smelling of wine, "staff wait quietly. They don't interrupt, they don't cause confusion. They know their place. Do you understand?" he asked. Naomi looked directly at him. "Yes, sir. I understand perfectly," she replied. Naomi was storming inside, and she was scared. She calmly pulled her wrist free and walked away with her back straight and measured steps. She wouldn't let him enjoy seeing her flustered. What she didn't see was the expression on Mr. Stone's face. Elliott Stone, 72 years old, founder of Stone Capital Management, controlling over $8 billion in assets, placed his fork meticulously on the table. His eyes, which had watched Drake with growing concern throughout dinner, now took on a colder expression. "Carter," Stone said quietly, "this is unacceptable." Drake waved his hand dismissively and wiped his arm with a napkin. "He spilled wine on me. I have every right," he said. "You have the right to act professionally," Stone interrupted, his voice soft but carrying absolute authority. "What you just did was neither professional nor acceptable," he replied. "Elliott, don't. It's not that serious. These service people, he said. "Cut it out." Stone's words came out as sharp as a scalpel. "Right now," he said. Drake finally realized the danger. His confident expression faltered. "I didn't mean it like that. Look, I was just upset. The deal, the stress," he continued. "The deal." Stone took out his phone, typed something short, then placed it face down on the table. The $200 million investment we've been negotiating for 6 months? That deal? He asked. Yes, exactly. I'm under a lot of pressure and he wanted to continue. That deal is over, he said. The words hit like a bomb. Drake's face drained. What? Elliott, you can't be serious. We've been working on this for months. My company needs this capital, he said. But he was talking to himself. The decision had already been made. The company, said Stone, his voice not raised but somehow filling the room, will not take a single dollar from Stone Capital. Not today, not ever. Because of a waiter? Drake's voice rose in panic. Because I got angry about spilled wine? He asked. Because he couldn't think of anything else. Because you revealed your character, Stone corrected. Because when you thought no one important was watching, you showed exactly who you are. You grabbed a young woman's wrist. You called her stupid. You used her race as an insult. You used your power against someone who couldn't defend themselves without risking their job, he said. Drake looked desperately at the other executives who were suddenly paying close attention to their plates. Guys, this is nonsense. Because of one moment, he said. One moment, Stone said, slowly standing up, is usually all you need to see the truth. Your company's value statement talks about respect, inclusivity, and innovation. But you've shown that these are empty words, and I don't invest in empty words, he said. Drake's world seemed to collapse around him. All his dreams were slipping through his fingers. His mistake had cost him dearly. He asked for the bill, and it arrived immediately. He signed it, added a tip that made the waiter's eyes widen, and turned to leave. Elliott, please, Drake said, standing up, a tone of desperation in his voice. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. He tried to continue. Make it up. Stone's expression was steely. You can't make it up, because this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You chose to humiliate someone, because you believed your status would protect you from the consequences. Today you're going to learn something different, he replied. Stone walked toward the door, then stopped. He turned back once more. By the way, Carter, that stupid black girl you just attacked? She's my daughter, he said. At that moment, the whole world seemed to stop. All the truths had been painfully laid bare. Drake began to think about everything for a moment. He wondered if this could be true. The color completely drained from Drake's face. Around the restaurant, phones had already been pulled out, secretly recording, instantly spreading on social media. She's been working here for 2 years while finishing her MBA at Columbia, top of her class, speaks 4 languages, and worth 10 times what you are, he said. Stone's voice dropped to a quiet, firm tone. You wanted to teach him his place. Let me teach you yours. You can't even come close to my investment portfolio, my business network, or my respect. I'll enjoy explaining this to the board, he said, and walked out without turning back. Drake froze at the 12th table, the wine spilling down his arm suddenly becoming the least of his problems. Whispers began around him, soft, damning, spreading like a forest fire. His phone began to vibrate, text messages, emails. Within 20 minutes, an evening that had ended in triumph would turn into a social media disaster. But in that moment, Carter Drake, standing in the Sterling Room's suddenly hostile silence, finally understood something he should have learned years ago. Oppression always has a price, and sometimes that price is everything. Naomi stood in the staff area, her hands trembling as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Her manager, Mr. Hendricks, approached her with a worried expression. Naomi, are you okay? That customer completely crossed the line, he said. I'm fine, she said automatically, then paused. Actually, no, I'm not fine, but I will be, she continued. Hendricks nodded. Mr. Stone paid the bill and left instructions. You're off for the rest of the evening with pay. Also, Hendricks handed her an envelope. He left this for you, he said. Inside was a note in Elliott's familiar handwriting. Come home when you're ready. We need to talk. And no matter what, I'm proud of how you handled yourself. This was a source of pride for Naomi. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. In the Sterling Room, determined to succeed on her own without her adoptive father's influence, she worked anonymously using her birth surname, Carter, instead of Stone. But tonight, Elliott had revealed their connection to protect her and teach her a valuable lesson. When Naomi arrived at the Stone mansion in Pacific Palisades, the incident had exploded online. Someone at the restaurant had recorded Drake's outburst, and Elliott's reaction. The video had gone viral, trending across all platforms. The situation was now beyond Drake's control. If you were in Naomi's place, how would you react? Do you think Drake deserved what happened to him? Elliott was in his study, reading glasses perched on his nose, reviewing the damage control statements from Drake's company. You didn't have to do that, Naomi said from the doorway. I mean, break the deal. It was $200 million. Elliott looked up and removed his glasses. It wasn't $200 million. It was a choice between money and character. I chose character. But the investors, they'll understand. Or they won't, and then I'll find better investors. He motioned for her to sit down. Naomi, do you know why I let you work under your own name in the Sterling Room? Because I insisted on charting my own course, partly. But also I wanted you to see how power works when people think no one is watching. In that restaurant you learned more about business than you could ever learn in any management training program. Naomi sat down, her professional composure finally cracking. He grabbed my wrist. He called me stupid. He used my race as an insult. And I just took it. Because that's what we're taught. Smile, apologize, don't make waves. You protected your dignity, Elliott corrected. There's a difference between tolerating harassment and strategically choosing your battles. You didn't escalate the situation. You didn't give him ammunition to claim you weren't professional. You held your ground without losing your position. And then you turned his whole world upside down. Elliott smiled slightly. I just withdrew my investment from someone whose values didn't align with mine. That's how it goes in business. Within the next 48 hours, the impact of the events spread at a speed no one could have predicted. Drake's company, Novatech Solutions, faced immediate consequences. 3 board members resigned. Its largest client, a progressive tech firm, terminated its contract citing incompatible values. 2 key executives resigned, stating they could no longer work for someone who displayed such blatant prejudice. The video was viewed over 1 million times. Comments poured in from business leaders, civil rights organizations, and celebrities. Most supported Elliott's decision and condemned Drake's behavior. However, there were also counter-reactions. Accusations that Elliott overreacted, that a momentary lapse shouldn't ruin a career, and that Drake deserved a chance to apologize and learn from his mistake. Drake apologized, of course. A carefully crafted statement was published on his company's website. I deeply regret the pain caused by my unforgivable behavior and words. I am committed to doing the work necessary to understand and combat my own biases. But the apology fell flat. Worse, emails leaked from Novatech's internal communications showed that Drake had initially wanted to file a defamation lawsuit, claiming that Elliott had unfairly sabotaged his work. When his lawyers declared the case invalid, he switched to an apology strategy. Naomi read the apology on her phone while sitting in a class at Columbia. A classmate leaned toward her. "Isn't that you, the waitress in the video?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded. "Good for you," her classmate said quietly. "And good for your dad. My brother's a chef." The harassment service workers face every day is insane. Maybe this will change something. But would it really? Naomi wondered. A viral moment, a pulled investment. Would this truly change how people treat service workers, how power operates, how privilege justifies itself? The answer began to arrive in unexpected ways. Other restaurants started implementing a zero-tolerance policy against customers' mistreatment of staff. Industry groups created guidelines to protect service workers. A major hospitality union cited the Sterling Room incident as proof that stronger protections were necessary. More importantly, other business leaders began re-evaluating their investment decisions through an ethical lens. 3 major venture capital firms announced new criteria that include workplace culture and respect for all employees as factors in funding decisions. Elliott received hundreds of messages, some supportive, some critical, all passionate. He did not publicly respond to any of them. However, he privately told Naomi, "Money ultimately flows toward values. It just takes people who want to align the two." 6 months later, Drake's company was acquired at a price far below its previous valuation. Drake stepped down as CEO as part of the deal but retained his shares. He began participating in diversity and inclusion events and shared his journey toward understanding bias. Naomi watched one of these events online and looked skeptical. Elliott walked into the study and asked, "Do you think he's sincere?" "I think he's learning that the results are painful," Naomi said. "Has he really changed, or has he just learned to better showcase change?" "I don't know. Does it matter?" Naomi considered the question. Maybe not. If the performance is consistent enough, it eventually becomes real. And even if he hasn't truly changed, the results sent a message to everyone watching. She opened another video. A restaurant manager defending a waiter being harassed by a customer and asking the customer to leave. The manager cited the Sterling Room incident as inspiration. "It matters," Naomi said. "It's not just Drake losing a deal. It's all those small moments where people make different choices because they see someone with power using that power the right way." Elliott nodded. That was the point, not the punishment. Drake definitely deserved the consequences. The point was to show that character can and should matter in business decisions. Naomi graduated top of her MBA class at Columbia. She received numerous job offers from large companies. She turned them all down to join Stone Capital Management. Not as Elliott's daughter, but as a young investment analyst who earned the position through her grades, experience, and specialized expertise in evaluating corporate culture. What was her first major proposal? to withdraw funds from a tech startup whose CEO displayed a dismissive attitude toward female employees. This attitude manifested subtly and discreetly in performance evaluations and promotion decisions. But Naomi had learned to recognize it. The startup's management objected. They had great metrics, strong growth, and innovative products. What did personal management style matter? Naomi told the investment committee, because personal management style creates a hostile work environment leading to resignations, discrimination lawsuits, and ultimately public relations disasters, either we cleanly exit the investment now or we deal with it in a complicated way later when the inevitable scandal erupts. Stone Capital withdrew from the investment. 3 months later, the toxic culture Naomi had identified came to light. The startup collapsed. The news spread. Stone Capital gained a reputation for rigorous ethical scrutiny as well as financial analysis. Some potential investors complained that it was too strict and judgmental. Others, however, specifically chose Stone Capital because they valued its comprehensive cultural assessments. A colleague told Naomi, "You're building something new, a framework where character isn't separate from profit, it's the foundation." Naomi corrected him, "I'm building what should always have been there." 5 years after that night at the Sterling Room, Elliott announced his retirement. The succession was clear to everyone. Naomi would become CEO of Stone Capital Management. At the press conference announcing this, a reporter asked, "Ms. Stone, your leadership style has been significantly influenced by the incident at the Sterling Room. Do you still think about that incident?" Naomi unconsciously touched the wrist Drake was holding. "Every day. Not because I experienced trauma, but because it taught me something very important. Systems don't change with good intentions. They change when people in power make costly decisions that show values are more important than convenience." Do you think Carter Drake learned that lesson? I think he learned that actions have consequences. Whether he learned empathy, respect, or real change, that's his journey. Mine is to ensure the system rewards good actors and consistently punishes the bad ones. Another reporter spoke up. "Critics say your investment criteria are too restrictive, that you sacrifice returns for moral grandstanding." Naomi smiled slightly. "Our 5-year returns have outperformed the market by 12%. It turns out that companies that treat their employees well, foster inclusive cultures, and demonstrate ethical leadership are better investments in the long run." Surprising, I know. The room erupted in laughter. "Seriously," Naomi continued, "the assumption that ethics and profit are opposing forces is precisely the mindset we're trying to change. They're not opposites, they're complementary elements. Good values create stable organizations. Stable organizations deliver sustainable returns. It's not complicated." That evening, Naomi returned to the Sterling Room for the first time since that night 5 years ago. The restaurant had invited her to attend an industry event honoring its exceptional service staff. She stood almost exactly where Drake had grabbed her wrist, where Elliott had ended the $200 million deal, where everything had changed. A young waiter approached her nervously. "Miss Stone, I just wanted to say, what happened here? What your father did, what you've done since then, it matters. I'm studying business at a state university. You showed me that respect isn't just a nice thing, it's fundamental." Naomi felt an unexpected wave of emotion. "What's your name?" "Carmen." "Carmen, keep studying, keep working. And remember, those who make you feel inhuman aren't flexing their power. They're exposing their weakness." Later, standing at the table where Drake sat, Naomi picked up a glass of mineral water. Elliott was there, retired but still present. Around them, industry leaders, investors, former waitstaff, current waitstaff, all had gathered to discuss the changing workplace culture. 5 years ago, Naomi began. A brutal moment at this table became the catalyst for change. Not because brutality is rare, because it isn't. But someone with power chose to make them pay dearly for it. To show that character matters. To show that how we treat the weak reveals who we truly are. She looked around the room. "We haven't solved everything. Racism still exists, abuse still happens, power still corrupts. But we've shown that these things don't have to be tolerated. We proved that ethics and success are not enemies, but allies. And we built systems that reward good behavior and punish bad behavior. So to the servers, staff, and invisible workers who keep our world running, to the leaders who choose character over convenience, and to the efforts to make the business world human again." Glasses were raised, cameras flashed, and in that moment, in that room where cruelty had once gone unpunished, justice was tangibly felt. Carter Drake wasn't there. He had moved to another city, taken a mid-level management position, and largely disappeared from public view. Whether he had truly changed was unknown. But Naomi had changed. Elliott had changed. Stone Capital had changed. And hundreds of companies affected by their investment decisions had changed. A moment at the 12th table, a wrist grab, a racist slur, an investment pulled, rippled out over 5 years and created waves that continue to spread. Because that's how real change happens. not through perfect people or singular heroic moments, but through the consistent choices of flawed people who accept that values come at a cost. Naomi touched her wrist one last time, then lowered her hand. The memory remained, but it no longer hurt. The wound had turned into wisdom, the pain into purpose, and she thought this was the real victory. Not revenge, not even justice, but transformation, turning a moment of cruelty into a movement towards something better. The lights of the Sterling room cast a warm glow in the evening darkness. Tomorrow business would continue. But tonight, in this place where everything had changed, there was only one realization. There was a price to pay for standing up, but the price of remaining silent was even greater. And sometimes the price of a single moment of honor was worth $200 million, and even more.